What is up, football fans, and welcome back to another edition of the ONETA Football Show brought to you by PTE Creative. As always, I am your host, Evan Davies, and what a time it has been this past week to be a football fan. We've had some wild news come out that we're not actually going to cover on the show because it's draft reaction season. Now, we may be a week removed from round one, but I think that's actually the best time to react because things start to slide into the place in which you actually feel about them. It's still truly too early to tell, and anybody who's paying attention to draft grades, they're all erroneous and they're all horrible. Whether you think you agree with them or not, because it's way too early to actually grade a draft. Because you never know how it's going to go. 5 years down the road, 3 years down the road, maybe even a year down the road, you can say, oh, great draft, bad draft, whatever. So today, in reacting to draft season, in reacting to how teams actually drafted, I'm just going to give a scale of love it, like it, hate it. And I might throw a ugh in as well. Sorry for the sound effect. But that is how I'm actually going to be, quote, grading these, because I don't think it's about grading. It's simply about, do you like how the team addressed their needs in the draft, how they moved throughout the draft to do what they could. So I'm going to go, this is all kind of alphabetical order today. I want to do something a little bit different. So we're going to go team by team, alphabetical order, see where they belong. So without further ado, let's begin with the Arizona Cardinals. The thing about Arizona, right off the bat, I can tell you this. I really enjoy their draft. I think I'm going to go as far as to say I love the Cardinals draft class. One, you have, I'm going to count it up right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 picks in the draft. One, that's absolute genius to do. I really enjoy the fact that this team needed a ton of help, and they went and got it through the draft process. If you look at their team needs, they were desperate at the skill positions, they were desperate in the defensive backfield, and they had no pass rush. Those were their three biggest needs. They addressed all three. Obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr. I thought was the safest pick in the entire draft. Darius Robinson, a climber at the edge position. Trey Benson as the running back, give you some dynamism in your backfield. All great pickups, and I like where they got a lot of these pieces. Max Melton in the second is a good pickup as well. But they went through and they looked at what does their team need. They went and got 2 more receivers. They went and got corners. They went and got edge players. They addressed it early, then they went back in the middle and addressed it again, and then they went back late and addressed it again. They picked up an entire side of the ball in terms of picks quantity. But now they truly have far more ammunition to be competitive. I really appreciate their draft. I'm going to say I go as far as to say I love the Atlanta Cardinals draft because right there you're going to see a team that has addressed their needs. Whether it pans out or not, it's to be seen. But I'm going to say I love the draft class of the Arizona Cardinals. Now the most controversial one of them all, the one that's gotten the most talk for obvious reasons, and that is the Atlanta Falcons. I'm of two minds of this. I will have to ultimately say, though, this, before I give my analysis and critique. I think no matter what, I think you have to say, I hate this draft. I hate it because of the process of where they are and what they did and where their process is. I think it's a flawed evaluation of where you are as a team. Plus, they didn't address one of the biggest needs, in my opinion. The obvious controversy, let's get straight to it. I'm of two minds. I'm from the Green Bay Packers school of thought where you can never have enough quarterbacks. You go and get the quarterback you believe in when you can. The problem is this. You do that in Atlanta when you're on the cusp of being competitive. You pay a bridge quarterback and then go get your rookie. It feels far too much like they didn't do their proper draft analysis on Michael Penix Jr. prior to signing Kirk Cousins, and they just went, oh, he's going to be our guy. Okay, if that's going to be your guy, that's fine. I have no issue choosing Michael Penix as a top 10 pick if you believe he's your guy. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, even if I don't agree that's where he should have been in a spot, many other people don't believe he should have been a top 10 pick. No matter what you think of the draft pick value, you have to think of the pressure it puts on your team. This is a team that has every skill position on the face of the earth with a quality offensive line. They have no defensive players whatsoever going into this draft outside of A.J. Terrell. You have a top 10 pick to get the best defender in this class, by your opinion. You took a quarterback you didn't need because your, quote, bridge quarterback is Kirk Cousins, a player who you are paying $100 million guaranteed to, 90 of which is in the first 2 years. And Michael Penix Jr., regardless of what you think of him, is the oldest prospect in the draft class of this. He's not going to start most likely for you simply due to finances until he's about 26, 27. You're losing a lot of athletic prime there to do that. Now, I'm not saying he still can't be a quality player. He can. My issue with why I say I ultimately hate this draft is this. They went and got a defensive line. That I agree with. That's great. Horo, Braylon Trice, Brandon Dorless. Great. And they did pick another defensive tackle in the 6th round in Zion Loge. That's great. Address your needs. But the rest of your draft, you went and got one linebacker. You didn't address any of your secondary needs whatsoever. You drafted more skill position players, which I have no issue with if you address your needs. But when you don't pick a single corner, you don't pick a single safety, you pick one linebacker, and you're just like, oh, we're good. No, you're not good. Now, I should preface this. A.J. Terrell is obviously a great player, and Jesse Bates, I always forget Jesse Bates is on the Falcons, obviously a great player. So maybe you didn't need the safety position, but you didn't get a single other corner. This is a 3-corner league now. This is a 5 DB league. You have 2. That's not acceptable. And then to have a top 10 pick and to use it on a quarterback when you already have theoretically the 3 to 4 year plan at quarterback, I disagree with that choice entirely. And that's why I ultimately have to say I hate it. I was a fan of Michael Penix Jr. I still am a fan of Michael Penix Jr. I still think he can succeed at the NFL level. But this is a cap nightmare with a situational nightmare, which is why I give this grade of a grade. Again, I keep saying grade just because I talked about it earlier. I would say I hate the Atlanta Falcons draft class because of that. It's not necessarily due to the players. It's the situation you put yourself in and not addressing other needs that you could have had. Now we go to the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens were a tricky one. I like some of their picks. 9 picks, not bad. That's a larger draft class for the most part. They went and got a physical freak with Nate Wiggins being able to run as fast as he does. At the corner position, they needed corner help. But to me personally, I understand they believe that they already have the pieces in place on the offensive line to step up. But you lost half a starting offensive line. To only draft one lineman, frankly, is a little asinine, in my opinion. I'm not going to go as far as to say I hate it. I'm going to go ugh on this draft class. This draft class is one where in the picks that they did choose, I can't say I'm wowed. I have no issue with Nate Wiggins. I do like Nate Wiggins. I thought that was good value for Wiggins. Roger Rosengarten, that's an alright pick by my mind. But I'm just not seeing where they're reloading in pieces they need. Their defensive line needs a lot of help. They didn't take a single one. They didn't take a single defensive lineman. Not even a flyer of a 7th. Now, Baltimore does things differently. They go by the value of their draft board. I respect that. That's how teams get it. So this is easily going to probably age poorly. But you're asking my opinion for it, so I have to say I'm going to go on the draft class here because I don't think they truly addressed what they needed. No real skill possession help except for Devontae Walker, who is a limited route runner with a speed threat. But that's kind of what a lot of your other guys have turned into. Zay Flowers is your one true threat. Rashad Bateman, you've re-signed, and I don't think Rashad Bateman's truly an answer. You've lost Odell Beckham Jr. Not that he was a huge difference maker, but at least you can't say Odell couldn't run routes and create some separation through route running. Those were all things that were there. And to not take a single wide receiver except for Devontae Walker in the fourth, who is a limited prospect in my mind, that's a little hindrance there. So I have to say Baltimore. I'm going to go the ugh. I'm going to Buffalo. Buffalo was an interesting one for me. One, I always recommend that if you don't see the guy that you want, trade down, especially if you have a higher pick. Go reclaim some draft capital. Obviously, they gain that second rounder next year in the Stephon Diggs trade. I love Keon Coleman. Those of you listening before know how much I adore Keon Coleman. Their first pick, which is the first pick of round 2, Keon Coleman to me was a top 15 to 20 player. I have no issue with that whatsoever. It's great value to me. Keon Coleman can be an answer. I am going to go here. Great variety in the picks. Addressed a lot of places and tried to address a lot of needs. It's a little thin, in my opinion. However, I'm seeing a safety. I'm seeing a corner. They did try to address some of their defensive backfield that I thought was a major need for them. They addressed a lot of needs here, and they didn't do it in the way of just, oh, well, we're going to take a safety because we have to take safety. No, they saw the value of where they could get them, and they did it. They saw the value of Keon Coleman dropping, stayed put where they needed to, and they got him. Really smart player on their part. I wish in a receiver draft this deep they would have took some more receivers, but I'm going to go as far as to say I'm going to love the Buffalo's draft. I think the Bills did a great job addressing a lot of needs. Just listen to the spread here. Wide receiver, safety, defensive tackle, running back, center, linebacker, edge, offensive tackle, cornerback, offensive guard. They drafted 10 positions. Not a single one was repeated. Not a single one. That's saying we're going to draft the best players that we can to do it, understand our draft board. We'll see how it all pans out for them, but in terms of a spread, trying to address the needs, trying to re-bolster their team up a bit, keep that window open, I got to say I love Buffalo's draft. I like it. I like it. Yeah, I love it though. All right, now we're going to go to the Carolina Panthers. Okay. Carolina, I know they had limited picks due to the Bryce Young trade. You know what you don't do when you have limited picks? You don't trade up. you don't. Especially with one pick, in my mind, you got a lesser player. I'm not going to say this. I will say this. I like Carolina's draft. I do. Because of this. They saw what they needed and they addressed things early. 3 of their top 4 picks were to address their quarterback position in terms of helping Bryce Young. That's a big deal to me. You still need a little bit more interior offensive line help. I would agree with that assessment right there. You need an edge player because you lost Brian Burns. And you could just use more bolstering along that defensive line. But this wasn't a strong defensive line class. Here I see, though, whether I agree with the choice, Xavier Legette, getting the 5th round option on him, if you think that traits guy is going to pan out for you and you have the additional 5th on him, it's a good idea. I just wish this team is bereft of talent in a lot of ways. They went out and spent a lot of money to try to address it, but they still do not have a ton of talent. I still think this is a place where you should have maybe even traded down further than you did to get additional picks just to load this team up with as many young lottery tickets as possible to fill your needs as much as possible. But again, really healthy spread here. Outside of linebacker, they didn't draft a single position doubling up. Now, I'm of the Bill Walsh philosophy here, where you address the team needs you have. My favorite draft of all time is the 1981 Bill Walsh draft for the 49ers. Walsh drafted his entire secondary, except for one player in Dwight Higgs. He drafted his entire starting secondary in the 81 draft, which included Ronnie Lott. He just said, "This is a problem. It's not going to be a problem anymore. I'm finishing this. I'm taking care of it." That I love. I love that issue there. Carolina went the different way. They went the spread way. But what I love is in the top four picks, you have Xavier Legette, who's a big traits wide receiver, bigger threat. He is a field stretcher to a degree, especially with the speed. That's really smart when you already have a good underneath receiver like Adam Thielen. You picked up Deonte Banks in the trade with the Steelers. Not a bad pickup at all. So you do have more underneath speed guys. Now you have a field stretcher in Legette. That's already light years ahead of what their receiving core was last year. Plus you have Mingo coming into year 2. We'll see how Mingo can do. Then you get the most dynamic running back in Jonathan Brooks if his health keeps up with the knee. And Jatavion Sanders, big tight end out of Texas. I really like that. You're addressing the needs you have by creating a better environment for your quarterback to succeed. That's how you get better. I like Carolina's draft here. I wouldn't say I love it, but I like it. And then you have the Chicago Bears, who did pick up an additional 5th pick. I have to say this, and it's going to pain me as a Packer fan. I love the Chicago Bears draft. I have one critique, and my critique was not creating more draft capital through trades. I think that third round pick, you probably could have picked another pick or two up and still stayed in the 3rd round and got a quality player. I do not like drafting a punter in the 4th round. Punters are people too. No disrespect to the punting game. But this is a team that has more holes than people believe. Now, from the love part, you got the best quarterback in the draft. You got the best player in the draft, Caleb Williams. Can't argue that. You got one of my favorite players in Rome Odunze, who I think is an absolute stud and will be an absolute stud. And it's going to be a giant pain in the ass to cover in the NFC North for a long time with Caleb Williams. That I love. I just don't love the rest of their draft, but from their top 2, your big impacts, you got it taken care of. I will say I love the Chicago Bears draft. Sorry, that was the Chicago Bears draft. And then we're on to the Cincinnati Bengals, or the Bungles, if you will. Now, with the Bengals, they had an interesting draft class. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players drafted. Again, good spread. They addressed the tight end position a lot, which is kind of interesting because it wasn't a great tight end class. But again, you're into 4s and 5s and 6s and 7s in that time. That's not that big a deal. I really like them understanding that their trenches are where they lost, and their first 2 picks addressed the trenches in the offensive tackle position and the defensive tackle position. Chris Jenkins, a very good player out of Michigan in the 2nd. You needed help along your defensive line. Great pickup. Amarius Mims, more of a projection guy out of Georgia at the tackle position, but a hell of a talent. If he can pan out, great job protecting Joe Burrow and investing in your quarterback. Now, they had 3 picks in the first 100. And they went trenches, additional skill player, trenches. I really do appreciate that philosophy. Now, the rest, they took some flyers on some tight ends, but they went and took a flyer on edge player. They need additional pass rush help. They went and took a corner. They took a safety. I really appreciate that. And then they took another flyer on a center for another trench pick. They understood their issues. I'm not crazy about some of the players they picked. I'm going to go with the Cincinnati Bengals, but I love the fact that they said we need to protect Joe Burrow and we need to address the trenches. That's really smart football. I do appreciate that. So I'm going to say I like the Bengals draft class here. Now we're on to the Cleveland Browns, and this is obviously going to be a difficult one. With the Browns, you only had 6 picks. So you're still, I believe this is the last year you're paying for it, but you're still paying for the Deshaun Watson trade, which is obviously very difficult to deal with still. You got a great defensive tackle in Michael Hall Jr. for good positional value and good draft value deeper into the second round. I really like that. And I really appreciate the flyer on Zach Zinter, the guard out of Michigan. No injury. I think he's far higher up in the board. And this is a team understanding that. I really appreciate that, especially with the history of being able to coach up linemen in Cleveland. I really appreciate that. The problem is, I will say because they addressed bigger needs with defensive tackle, with bolstering their offensive line, which they're always on the cusp of losing somebody, so it's good to refresh. Their wide receiver room, I think, could have gotten better. Jamari Thrash in the fifth. Not a bad, but at that time, you're taking flyers on players. It sucks because you can't. Your issue is you're still paying for a quarterback through draft capital. And when you do that, you hamstring your team in a lot of ways when you mortgage your entire future. And that's your issue. You didn't have a first round pick. Obviously, to trade into one costs you even more draft capital in the future. You don't want to mortgage your future. However, not having a first, being deep in the second, deep in the third, and not having a fourth where you can usually pick up a great sliding player, you're taking a real risk with your draft capital, which is why at the end of the day, beyond just my obvious bias for the team, because I am a huge fan, a season ticket holder, and a technical owner, if you want to still call it that, as a shareholder. And again, that's in heavy quotations. But look how much I loved Arizona, 12 picks. Buffalo went and created more draft capital when they didn't have as much. Carolina tried to at least get some more draft capital for themselves. This is a team that has more holes than just 6 picks can fill. And I know the draft is a crapshoot, okay? Your best chances are 50-50 with a player, even if it's a player that's guaranteed. I said Marvin Harrison Jr. is the safest pick in this draft, really closely followed by Joe Alt. I think after that, I might go Rumadunze. All three of those guys, who I adore, all three, I think they're all phenomenal players. They all have a success chance, top 60%, of panning out to be everything that they could be. Now, it's really easy to say 3 years from now, 5 years from now, if they're killing it. I knew. Just like I've been saying for years about guys that I loved, such as Patrick Mahomes. I knew he was going to work out. I knew AJ Terrell was going to work out at the corner position. They're just players you have instincts for. That's great. However, learning that the draft's a crapshoot, and at best you usually get a 50-50 chance at high-end players panning out. And then you get kind of like a 10% chance of those flyers in the late rounds, really panning out for you and being contributors. Not stars, just contributors. The fact that you didn't have the ability to take more, it's difficult. I'm going to say this would be the greatest middle round for me, probably, with Cleveland. I will say I like it because I like their first 2 picks. Actually, no, I'm going to erase that. I like their first 2 picks. That's the caveat to it. But I'm going to go, because you're still paying for something that's not panning out. And there were ways you maybe could have manipulated it a hair. Just pick up another 7th. Pick up another 6th. Pick up a 4th somehow. And get more lottery tickets to help yourself out. That's really what I would have liked for Cleveland. We've made it through a 4th of the NFL now. We're going to everyone's most hated team, the Dallas Cowboys, allegedly America's team. Cowboys, they were short on draft capital as well, but they did trade back and create some, which I did appreciate. from a team building standpoint. Had no fourth, which is a little disheartening, but at the same time, got some additional draft capital, picked some things up, which was really smart on their part. The thing I liked most about Dallas was they understood trenches were their problem, especially with the offensive line, and they went to the offensive line 3 times. Traded back, still got Tyler Guyton, took a flyer on a late round player, which I have no issue with whatsoever. You went and got Cooper Beebe in the 3rd, and you took another flyer on an offensive tackle in the 7th. And say what you will, Dallas can draft. Dallas knows how to draft and develop offensive line help. Then to also get an edge player and address that trench, and your first 3 picks are all in the trenches, I really appreciate that for Dallas. I'm not going to say I love this draft because there's nothing here that goes, oh my God, yes. But it was a good draft. It's a like. The funny part is this would have been the time to try to convince everyone you were all in, and they still didn't do it. So the joke will continue for all of time because the Cowboys are always going to be a laughingstock of sound bites. And yes, you can quote me on that forever. Alrighty, and we're here, team number 10, the Denver Broncos. Woof. Okay. Another one of the you traded your future away and it didn't pan out for you, but at least they've tried to stop the bleeding, which I appreciate. Sucks to have no second round pick, but I get it. That's where you are in life. Here's what I will say that I like. I will say I like Denver's draft. Not love, like. And we will get to Bo Nix at the end of this section. Denver was far closer to the Carolinas, the Tennessees, the Arizonas. That was bereft of talent. They had so many holes to fill. They didn't have the draft capital to do it. They did trade a little bit around the board, picked up a little bit more. Fine with that. I think that's good. Previously, I love the fact that they got falling players for value. Troy Franklin, it's a nice pickup. People had Troy Franklin going as high as the 1st. To get him in the early 4th round, great pickup there. Chris Abrams-Drain, another guy that could have been a fringe 1st, 2nd in a lot of people's minds. To get him in the 5th, that's great value. Again, it's kind of funny when we talk about draft value and players because, again, it's all a crapshoot. However, for where you got them, playing the draft board and understanding needs, I really like that. They needed more skill position players. They took a flyer on 2 of them with Troy Franklin and Devon Veely. They needed additional corner help because Patrick Surtain cannot do everything by himself. To get Abrams-Drain was a good pickup. I will say I like Denver's draft here. I can't love it because I don't like Bo Nix at 12. Here's the issue, though. The issue is forced. I think they probably would have traded back to get Bo Nix later on and get more draft capital in a perfect world, but they knew they weren't going to get him. So they had to take him at 12. It's a value thing and it's a maintenance thing. And people say value. Again, it's a crapshoot. However, when you pick up more additional draft capital, you give yourself more chances to hit on players. To me, where Denver was, and I'm speaking as someone who likes Bo Nix, but I like him as a 2nd-round player, not a 1st-round player. You could maybe talk me into the 5th-year option late in the 1st round, if needed. But I said I liked him more as a 2nd-round pick. I would have probably been more comfortable trading out a 12, staying in the 1st round, but picking up a 2nd or picking up an additional 3rd or wherever I could have gotten. Maybe in the teens for a team that wanted to trade up for a tackle, something like that. I would have been more comfortable with that risking it, and if I don't get it, take the best player available on my board, which I still would have got good skill position players there, or I could have addressed my corner needs or other things of that nature. I could have done all of that. And then the board showed it, but you still had the picks here to make it happen. Take a Spencer Rattler in the third. I think that would have been a far better option, or even in the fourth, because I think Rattler was a fifth round pick. I would have been more comfortable with that than I would have Bo Nix at 12 and then having to wait, 60 more picks before you could go again. That, to me, is my issue. I like what they did. I didn't love it, though. And we go to our 11th team, and that would be the Detroit Lions. Small draft class for them. They traded a lot around, and they traded up a lot and got some things. I will say this. I don't love, and it's not out of bias because I think their first two picks are great picks. My issue is draft capital value and trading so much to get up or give away parts of your future for win now mode. I understand they're in win now mode. There's nothing wrong with being in win now mode when you've built the team that they have. The issue is if you want to stay in Contenderville, you cannot get wild with your draft picks. You have to keep them. You have to keep building. There's a reason teams like Green Bay, like Pittsburgh, Baltimore, San Francisco, those teams, unless they have to make a big move to go get the piece that they're sorely missing, they generally trade down. They generally trade away players before they can't get something for them. They help themselves in the draft, and they give themselves more ability to pick up good players by having more picks. That's how they stay in the contender race. Whether they win every year or not, that's neither here nor there. Because ultimately, we're kind of running on dynasty modes for the last 25 years in the NFL, which is kind of unfair to judge things by. But the teams I just said, they pick up more players, therefore pick up more ability to fill holes and fill needs because they have more chances to do so, which is really smart. So if you want to stay in that contender picture, you got to be smart about that. This doesn't mean all of a sudden, oh my God, Detroit's going to suck. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that if they're going to continue to do this Maverick style of draft and risk it all the time just to get the player that they want in the moment, there is a higher likelihood that they will start to suffer in the next 2 years as they have to start paying more and more players. Jared Goff needs a new contract, and they clearly love Jared Goff. And you just paid Amon-Ra St. Brown. You just paid Penei Sewell. A year from now, you're going to have to start looking at paying Aiden Hutchinson. Edge players aren't cheap. Ryan Branch is eventually going to come up for a contract. If Jameson Williams hits, you have another wide receiver contract to pay out. Whether he hits or not is a different story, but you never know. Jahmyr Gibbs is going to need another contract eventually. You have players there now that you're going to have to pay, so you need to manage draft capital better. However, Ennis Rakestraw Jr., where you got him, really good pick. Terrion Arnold at 24, love that pick as well, and he clearly fit really well. And even the rest of their picks, they understood, let's just take our best players available. They went trenches and secondary here. Their entire draft was trenches and secondary. That was it. And it was offensive tackle, offensive guard, and they picked one defensive tackle. So it's not as if they had a bad draft. I'm going to say I liked their draft. I just didn't love the use of draft capital there. And now we go to my beloved team, the Green Bay Packers. And again, the Packers are an interesting one here. So when I see it, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11 picks. Crazy that our boy Goody didn't get more picks, but to get the picks that he did, I think to get what he got was great. As per usual with Green Bay's draft, I wasn't wowed at the top. I was wowed in the middle rounds, which is what I liked. Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle at 25. I was heartbroken to see Fatanu go at 20 to the Steelers. That I was like, oh, please let him slip. Please let him slip. I thought he would have been a perfect Packer and fit what the Packers needed a lot. Jordan Morgan, good pick. Wasn't crazy about the value there. I loved Edgerrin Cooper there. I loved Javon Bullard there. In the second rounds, I love having that second round pick. Marshawn Lloyd was an interesting one for me. I do love getting Kalen King in the 7th. As a former projected really, really high pick, fell to the 7th. Now, you could say poor play did that, and that's true. But have play as well as he did 2 years ago, and then fall, to be able to get him is great. And I also do love the classic, I'm talking classic Ron Wolf style Green Bay drafting. Just taking a flyer on a quarterback. Michael Pratt was as high as a 3rd round pick for a lot of people. And to get him with a late 7th is absurd. So I love that pickup there, because just take flyers on quarterbacks. You can never have enough, college prospect quarterbacks. Because it's not like anyone's going to supplant Jordan Love right now. But they understood they had secondary issues. They understood they had linebacking issues. And they had trench issues. And they addressed them. They really, really did. I'm going to say I like it. I don't love it. Simply because of this. It's a typical Packer draft in which I hope I'm dead wrong and everything happens always like it does. In which, in Goody, we trust. I think there were better chances at a better running back here. I think there were better, not necessarily better, but possibly more efficient options at the offensive tackle position around where you were. And you had enough draft capital that you could have traded up a little bit to go get one if you needed to. And then trade one of your seconds or your thirds down and still got the quality players that you did there. I'm going to say like, not love, but it's out of the hesitancy, and there might be the blinding factor of I probably should love this draft for the Packers. They always do really well. I do like them addressing their needs with offensive linemen. They picked 3 of them. I'm sorry. I'm going to refute what I just said. I'm going to go to love, and it's not out of blind Packer love. I'm now really just looking at brass tacks, what they did. Good even spread. Offensive tackle, center, offensive tackle. Okay, great. 3 in the trenches. You need trenches help. You need linebackers. I got 2 early, talented young running linebackers. Okay, great. They needed safeties. They went and got 2 of them. I'm sorry, 3 of them. Just fill that roster. And then to take a flyer on Kalen King when he needed additional secondary help. I really do love this draft. I guess when I really look at it, I'm just hesitant as a fan of the team, just going like, okay, typical Packer draft, nothing wowed me. But these are the guys that usually turn out to be some of my favorite players. So, we're going to give Green Bay the benefit of the doubt here. I will say I love the Green Bay Packer draft, although I did have a lot of hesitancy towards it. I'm going to try to speed up here a little bit for you folks. We got ourselves the Houston Texans. This is a tough one. The Texans, to me, didn't have dire needs, but they had some needs. I like their top half of their draft quite a bit. Kamari Lassiter, Blake Fisher, Kalen Bullock, even Cade Stover. Good value picks. You didn't have a first. You traded out of the first round. Picked up additional help next year, which I always think, again, smart drafting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Still 9 players. Really filled positions where they needed to. I'm going to say I like Houston's draft class. I think Lassiter, where you got him, was a good pickup. And Blake Fisher, where you got him, was a great pickup. That I really do appreciate. So I'm going to say I like Houston's draft. We're going to go to the Colts. The Colts are always such an interesting one when I look at it. I'm going to go as far as saying this with the Colts. I think I love their draft. I really do. I love Leatu Latu at 15. He's the best pass rusher in the draft, in my opinion. Get him at 15. That's high quality. And to get A.D. Mitchell where you did, whether I think as highly of A.D. Mitchell as others is irrelevant. They've clearly valued him, and to get him where they did is great value. And then they went, but look at their first 5 picks. Look at their first 5 picks. That's the big thing for me. I said this on the podcast prior. You have a young quarterback. That's the priority. Make it the best situation possible. At pick 15, when they probably wanted to go tight end, or they probably wanted to get in the Brock Bowers market, or they wanted to get offensive tackle, and Leatu Latu staring you in the face, and you do need edge rushing presence and help there, and he's just staring at you going, please pick me, you sure as hell take Leatu Latu in that. That doesn't address the quarterback. What does? A.D. Mitchell, who most people thought was a first-round pick. You go get an offensive tackle help in the 3rd round. You go get a quality center in the 4th round in Tanner Bortolini. And then your next pick in the 5th is another wide receiver. So you took higher swings at, we're going to address our offense to make the best situation possible for our young quarterback. I will say I love that for the Colts. And then in the back half, they still understood, hey man, we need corner help. We need safety help. So they took 2 safeties and a corner. Took some flyers on some guys. That's smart drafting on their part. I'm going to say I love Indianapolis' draft class. Now we go to the in-division rival and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars always disappoint me somehow with the draft, and I think they did more spread than they normally do. The issue is I don't think they really solved any problem. Your greatest issue is protecting your quarterback and having someone for your quarterback to throw to. Brian Thomas Jr., great pickup at 23. Love that pick. Where's the priority when other players that were quality were still available to protect your quarterback until the 4th round? You had higher players available to you in 2 and 3 to protect him. You didn't take it. I'm going to say to Jacksonville, I don't hate it. But again, this is a draft class that it's typical Jaguars shit. It's typical Jaguars bullshit. Big guys, trait guys, athletic guys. Nothing wrong with that. You got to take athletic guys. You got to take flyers on things. You got to take flyers on size and speed and all that kind of stuff. I understand that. But the reason Jacksonville is the team that they are is because they can never just address their fucking needs properly. This might be the best draft class they've ever had. I could be completely wrong. And to that I can say, okay, fine. But I'm not seeing the investment in their quarterback outside of saying, well, we took the best player we could at 23. You traded down and got more draft capital. I like that. I like Brian Thomas Jr. I'm not saying I dislike some of the guys that they took. I'm just saying the priorities are not there. You have what was called a generational talent, possibly, in Trevor Lawrence. And they're just, even your draft class does not say and does not scream, he's our priority. This is typical bullshit for the Jacksonville. I'm going to go, to Jacksonville's draft class. And we're finally to the last one of the top half of the league. And our defending champion, Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City. Small draft class. They did have to trade up. I will say I do not love. I do not love. But I love spots. If any team was going to take Xavier Worthy, I think Kansas City doing it is the best one. They needed a field stretcher. If you watch their offense over the last 2 years, and specifically last year, they had no ability to stretch the field. Zero. Because people did not take MVS as a threat whatsoever, as evidenced by the Eagles game. Still is going to kill me every time. Kadarius Toney was never on the field, so he couldn't have done anything. Who could have stretched the field a little bit. That team was built on 3 to 9 yard crossing routes by Rashee Rice and 7 to 8 yard curl routes by Travis Kelce. That was the passing attack of the Kansas City Chiefs with the greatest quarterback in the history of the game there. The best quarterback that's ever played the game. That was the basis of the offense. So I'm going to say I like, but I don't love, because it's Xavier Worthy, great field stretch. Like that. Scare that defense so you can get away from just those small routes and you get back to attacking intermediate on a more consistent basis. Get back to more consistent deep threats so you can really use the talent of your quarterback. That I like. Kingsley Sumatai, I don't have an issue with Kingsley Sumatai. Offensive tackle is there. I think what I have an issue with is you're going into the fourth. Take some flyers on your defensive line, your offensive line, and your corner position. Where, not that those positions are weak necessarily, but they could use some bolstering. They could use some help. And to not take those options and take some flyers on a little bit more higher round caliber players in those positions is where I'm going to say I like, I do not love Kansas City draft. Also, when you have only the base 7 picks because you traded up, that's where I go, maybe prioritize your flyers a little bit more. But that's just me. I'm going to say I like, don't love Kansas City's draft class. But I love spots of it. And now, folks, we're into the back half of the league again. I'm going to try to speed up a little bit more. What in bluest of blue? All right, folks. Now that my slideshow has completely decided to crap out on me, which love technical difficulties right in the middle of my video session with all of you guys. There we go. We got ourselves the Las Vegas Raiders, which I don't know why, because it should be the Los Angeles. Yeah, whatever. Who cares? Oh, it's by abbreviation. Different story altogether. We're going to go Las Vegas here. Vegas. I will go with a like. This might be milquetoast for me. The biggest obvious glaring need they didn't get to address at the quarterback position. I'm going to go, no, that's not fair. This might be the only team that gets a meh. They're right in the middle. Brock Bowers, great pickup. I like Brock Bowers, but it wasn't a huge glaring need. It was his best player available, which is good protocol for a team. Powers Johnson, Glaze, and the next 2 picks, like those picks. Again, quality players, bolstering your offensive line. You needed offensive line help. That's great. To have players available to take a flyer on. I understand it's going to sound like this is the second team I brought up for Spencer Rattler, but Spencer Rattler was a higher end flyer pick to me that could have done something. And I think he has more physical ability and talent than Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell. So you have a chance to go take a flyer on the guy, and you don't do it. Take that really low risk option at quarterback. I get it. It sucks. You didn't get one high end. That obviously is going to be a downfall unless things work out perfectly for you in Las Vegas. But I just got to say, man, because you didn't address your bigger needs, and you still kind of just were ho-humming in the back end. We're not taking flyers and getting more skill position players to make a more dynamic offense to at least kind of help our average or below average quarterbacks. We're not feeding them better. You just lost your big running back in Josh Jacobs. Hunter Renfro's not there, who is a Mr. Reliable target. Brock Bowers, that's great. You're going to have Brock Bowers. But your running back room needs help. Your receivers could use more help, even though you do have Devontae Adams. You could have used a little bit more, and you didn't take it. I'm going to go meh for the Vegas Raiders there. And we're to the Los Angeles Chargers. Whew. I'm doing this live here, folks, because as much as my notes are here, I just love giving you the most honest opinion I can in the moment. I'm going to say like. I like Joe Alt. I like Ladd McConkey, Junior Colson. All great pickups. I think the biggest thing here is with this is actually that's a lie. I'm gonna go to Love. I'm gonna go to Love because I now looking deeper at their class a little bit more. I liked Brendan Rice more than a 7th round pick. It's great. Um, Only having two Michigan players, one being a 7th round wide receiver, is wild to me. Seeing how the coach coached all these guys there. But taking the best tackle is great. I just didn't agree with it because you could have got your more draft capital, addressed for another receiver position a little bit more. Something of that nature. And you still could have got a really high quality offensive tackle. But Joe Alt is the consensus best tackle position player, so that's good. I like Ladd McConkey in the second. I think that's a good pickup. And then just take late round flyers on corners and wide receivers where you do need help. I love that. They went early at their bigger positions. They got a defensive captain in Junior Colson. They went trenches in their first 4 picks. That's great. And they addressed a wide receiver position need and still got 2 more later to take some flyers on. I'm going to say I love this draft. I love the Chargers draft. It's not my biggest love, but I'm going to say I love the Charger draft there. Then we go to the LA Rams here, folks, who I think desperately wanted Byron Murphy and couldn't get him. But, here's one that it's kind of just a weird one. It's a weird draft to me. They needed edge help, and they needed defensive tackle help. They took it early. I don't like Jared Verse, but teams have different opinions than I do, so fine. Taking 2 Florida State players back to back is obviously an interesting thing with Verse and Fisk there. Corum in the third, don't agree with that one, don't understand that one. Running back wasn't a big need, it wasn't something necessary. To go out with no corners and the only secondary player you pick is Cameron Kinchens, who I loved Cameron Kinchens in my 2nd and 3rd round mocks, which I did on the podcast. I didn't reveal every pick. I loved Cameron Kitchens and I wanted him on Green Bay. I just love the way he thumps around and he plays the safety position. It's no fear, hit the shit out of people. I love that bad motherfucker mentality in my safeties specifically. I really do like that pick. I'm not seeing the continuity. I'm not seeing the real offensive pickup needs. You needed more offensive line help in my ability. You didn't take a single one outside of your last flyer pick on a guard in the 7th round. You went defense tackle and defensive edge, understanding you were going to need help there. They did that. That's great. I'm going to say like for the Rams. It's just they didn't really get much better, in my opinion, and where they needed to. So that's where I would say I have an issue with the Rams specifically on that case. Then we go to Miami. Miami was, again, a bit of a weird one for me. Chop going at 21 wasn't awful. My greatest issue here is you needed defensive tackle help. You didn't get anything. You took flyers on the edge. That's good. You need far more offensive line help than what they gave themselves. I get it. They only have 7 picks. But in your late round flyers, you didn't take any of that. You took two skill position players and a safety, which is fine if that's your strategy and you want to do. If you think you're happy with it, I get it. You don't have to agree with me. But it doesn't show, in my opinion, the real eye for need. Teron Armstead can barely stay healthy. You picked one offensive tackle to help with that. Just lost Robert Hunt. Have more needs in that. Edge you at least saw as a need, and you still didn't super pack it. You just went, I don't know, let's get through. I'm going to say ugh to Miami's draft. I don't think it was a very great consensus going through what you needed to go through. That's where I went with Miami. And then the in-division rival Minnesota Vikings to my beloved Green Bay Packers. Obviously, they made one of the bigger storylines with the J.J. McCarthy trade. And they didn't have to trade all the way up to get him. They got him at 10. That's a great job. The Dallas Turner pick at 17 is a great pickup. It's a huge value there. It's the rest of it. I'm going to say because, again, like a lot of teams, Minnesota has more needs than people believe because they have been so consistently good over the last couple of years with Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson leading the way. The issue is you lost talent at the edge position player. You refilled it. You lost your quarterback. You refilled it, but it's J.J. McCarthy is not a sure thing. I like him a lot, but he's not a sure thing. It was ironic. I was sitting at the draft party that I was at with my boys, and we have a big contest of all these people of most accurate 3-round mock and all these rules. It's very fun that we like to do it. But J.J. McCarthy apparently, two of the guys that are in our draft pool live near the Detroit area, have big Michigan ties, all that kind of stuff, and saw where J.J. McCarthy was having his draft party, and immediately we're like, that's the biggest red flag of J.J. McCarthy of all time, because apparently it's a very ritzy white upper class kind of place. It's not like a friendly to everybody kind of thing. It was just funny. It's no judgments on J.J. McCarthy. I don't know shit about the Michigan area of that outside the little piece I've been to. I just thought that was hilarious that, quote, he has all these red flags, and then the two Michigan guys were like, biggest fucking red flag there is right there. So I just thought that was hilarious. I like the top end of the draft. I don't like their back end of their draft. I'll say like. I shouldn't say don't like it. It's just nothing to go, woo. It's just kind of like, okay. Kyrie Jackson, the fourth's not bad, though. So I'll say I like Minnesota's draft class there. New England. New England. I will go as far as to say this. Fuck it. I like it. I love it, actually. I do not love Drake May. I still am very hesitant about Drake May. If you told me who's of the quarterbacks who's going to be a bust, I would have said Drake May in a heartbeat. Because I don't think you should expect that from Bo Nix. Now, Bo Nix's territory is going to say bust territory if it doesn't work out. As will Michael Penix Jr. due to draft position if it doesn't work out there. Having said my piece on Drake May, though, he was a consensus top 3 pick. You needed a quarterback, you got it. Look what they did in the first 4 rounds of the draft. Their first 5 picks, what did they do to help their team? They went and got their foundational piece in their quarterback. They took 2 quality receivers to help when they were already bereft of talent at the wide receiver position. They went and got a playmaker like Jalen Polk. They went and got Javon Baker. And they went and got offensive tackle and offensive guard help. They already had Onwenu, I believe, who's an offensive tackle on their team. You went and got more blocking help for your young quarterback, and you went and got him some weapons. And then you took a late round flyer on another tight end. Who knows if he works out or not? Who don't know, won't know for a long time. But I adore that. And you know what? Screw it. Taking a late round flyer on Joe Milton, I don't hate. He's enough traits that if you believe you could turn him into something, cool. Don't know why you do it with Drake May, but that's a different story. And I'm saying Will Milton with Drake May because obviously Drake May is a first round quality quarterback in many people. But I will say I love this draft because they understood the biggest needs of their team and they addressed them. Not only did they address them, they addressed them the right way. They knew the quarterback position was the priority and helping that young quarterback develop and get better, and also giving Jacoby Brissett something to work with going into this year. So hopefully they can sit Drake May. Hopefully they can develop a quarterback and still possibly get better, win some games, get competitive in their division and in the AFC. All for it. Love this draft class. It's hard for me to say because I hate New England, but love that draft class there for the Patriots. Team 23, we go to the New Orleans Saints. This is usually a team that I laugh at, their draft class, but okay, I will say I do not love because you're missing third and fourth round picks. Talisi Fuaga, love it. Kool-Aid McKinstry at 41 or 40. That pick 40, I think, or 41. Love Kool-Aid at 41. You got that big hole, you take a big hit. I love that Spencer Rattler pick in the 5th because you don't know what the hell you got in Derek Carr anymore, especially without the offensive line help. I will say I don't love simply because there's a big gaping hole. Nothing super out there to go, oh my God, so bad. And outside of Fuaga and McKinstry, there's nothing really going like, yeah, we got better. You took some flyers on some guys. Great. That's okay. But I do love the Spencer Rattler pickup as some insurance and see what the kids got at the end of the year when you don't want to pay Derek Carr any injury bonuses. The New York Giants, the Tiffany franchise itself, didn't have a lot of draft capital. I understand Brian Burns was part of that draft capital loss, which is a great pickup. I will say this. I'm apologizing right now, Brandon and Derek, who are my boys that love the Giants, and I watched the draft with them over in Jersey. I will say I'm gonna go. It hurts, but Malik Neighbors with the 6, no issues with that. Great pickup, great player. You needed receiver help. This was a team that had so many holes and was very bereft of talent. You could have thrown them in the top 5 worst or top 5-6 worst teams when it comes to total team talent. It's so many holes. And they spread really thin. And they addressed a lot of them. And unlike the other teams that kind of had some picks and you could cherry pick some players and kind of go, oh, Arizona addressed a lot of stuff. Carolina addressed a lot of stuff, whatever. And it was kind of positive for them. I don't think the Giants should have done that. Where the Giants' greatest issue right now is their quarterback position. You're tied to Daniel Jones financially. Those are the words I need. Tied to Daniel Jones financially. You have no wide receiver help at all, except Malik Neighbors now. Sure, you can say, oh, we have Sterling Shepard. Okay, fine. Sterling Shepard is at best a 3. It's at best a 3. And they have another kid who's a 4, but it's still not great 3s or 4s either. You took tight end in the 4th, fine. I would have just taken the flyer going, we're just going to try to fix as much as we can offensively, especially because you have Brian Burns now as your 2nd and 5th round pick. So you now have Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence, and Brian Burns across your line. You're going to get better defensively. You already have Deontay Banks in the backfield. So maybe you keep the Tyler Nubin pick. I don't have a problem with the Tyler Nubin pick in and of itself. But you're going to create pressure, which is going to make the people behind them better. So you may as well go deeper into the wide receiver class, deeper into the tight end class, deeper into the running back class, and get some goddamn skill position players. But you didn't do it high enough, for my opinion. 3, 4, and 5 all should have been skill position players, with your wide receiver being drafted in 3s and 4s. Take a flyer in the tight end in the last one, unless you just love a player in the 6th. The other thing I don't understand here, trade back 3. Trade back your 3. Get another goddamn pick. Or 2. Even if you have to go down 20 spots. Get some more flyers. Get that ability, because then you can spread a little bit thinner at those positions with your picks. So I'm going to say, I don't hate it because I love Malik Neighbors' pick, but I can't say I love it either. It's just for the Giants. Now to the Jets. Jets, another team that usually I just laugh at their draft class. I usually just go, what the fuck you doing? However, great name, Quantez Stiggers, as the corner pick in the 5th. The Jets, another tough one for me. I will say, again. Here's my issue. Top 3 picks. Olu Fashanu. Great pickup. Loved it. They did exactly what I thought they should do. Help themselves now and help themselves in the future by getting, in my opinion, the highest ceiling offensive tackle. In my opinion, the best offensive tackle in the draft, period, in Olu Fashanu. I love that pickup. And you addressed a lot of your offensive line needs through free agency. So now across that line, you could have Tyron Smith, Olu Fashanu, Morgan Moses, John Simpson, I think, and Elijah Vera Tucker across your line. That's a pretty good offensive line then. Granted, the other 4 have to stay healthy besides Olu. Malachi Corley in the 3rd round, don't hate it. Braylon Allen is one I don't get. Obviously, I'm a big Scotty guy. I love my home state very much, but you don't need a running back. You need to protect Aaron Rodgers, and you need to get people who can catch the goddamn ball. Take a skill position player there. And then the other problem I have is I have no issue with them taking Jordan Travis. I really don't. Take a developmental flyer on Jordan Travis. I like Jordan Travis. But what did they do the rest of the rounds? They didn't take another single flyer pick trying to help Aaron Rodgers out. They kind of just drafted for depth, which is fine if that's your strategy, but then you can't say, oh no, we're trying to win right now and help Aaron Rodgers. You're in win now mode. You need to go get some more help, and I don't think they helped him enough. And this is not typical Packers, they never help Aaron Rodgers. It's just simple facts. Mike Williams can't stay on the field. Although he's a great player when he's on the field, he's proven he can't stay on the field. So you have Garrett Wilson and Garrett Wilson. And then you have Breece Hall. Those are your 2 bankable offensive weapons to help. Let's see if Corley can do something. But go just take another guy. Take another guy. Help him out. Let the running back go. Even if he is a Badger, let him go. Now we're on to the Eagles. These goddamn Eagles always doing well. They would fucking have both Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean fall to them. I will give the Eagles this. They understood their needs and they went in. Damn it, I gotta say it. I love their draft. I really do. Pains me to say it because I fucking hate the Eagles. But Quinyon Mitchell at 22 when he should have been a top 10 pick possibly. Or fringe top 10 pick. Great value. Cooper DeJean at 40. God damn it. Hey, we have a horrible secondary. What should we do? Let's get 2 of the top 5 or top 6 corners in the draft. That should fix it. Yeah, I'd say so. Then they went edge because they knew their pass rush needed help after last year. Then they took some flyers on some skill position players. They went back and got Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who I do like as a linebacker. And they need a linebacker help. And then they took more flyers on offensive weaponry and trench players. This is the way you should draft. Whether people like to, the most popular term I've heard lately is dick ride. Whether you want to dick ride Howie Roseman or not, because he does. It came out in the last couple of days. If you look at his drafts, he does the most consensus high round players on his draft boards, getting guys where they should go or getting them after where they should go. So I think it's kind of funny that everyone's like, oh, of course, he stole it. When you actually look at some of them panning out, they haven't really done much or didn't do anything, but they were good value for where they got them, but they never turned into anything or haven't turned into anything special at all. So it's just kind of funny how that works. But whether you want to dick ride Howie Roseman or not, or hate the guy or not, you can't say it's not a good draft. They addressed their biggest needs, 1 and 2, back to back, and they bolstered all their problematic areas. What's to hate about it? It's only to love about the Eagles. As much as we all should hate the Eagles, that's who we are, but goddamn, I love that draft class. 27, Pittsburgh Steelers, another team I usually cannot stand their draft class. I usually laugh at it. I'm going to love it again. Offensive line was a problem. Let's take 3 of them, all 3 good ones in the top 4 rounds. Okay. Hey, our wide receivers, they're good, but with George Pickens, but they're not great, but we have a history developing them. Why don't we go take Roman Wilson, big playmaker out of Michigan, to pair with George Pickens and give more threats to Russell Wilson and Justin Fields? Hey, our offense is anemic and can barely score 14 points. You know what we should do? We should block for him and get some skill position players. Case in point, the Pittsburgh draft class. This is effective. You have a traditional 7th round, 7 picks. That's all you have here. To me, this is one of the most effective 7-pick drafts I've ever seen. Because they knew their issues, they addressed their issues with high-end quality players, and then their back end, they took flyers on their defense to help themselves out. I have nothing negative to say about Pittsburgh. It's usually a team I think their draft class is kind of meh or shitty at times. Where you got Peyton Wilson, where you got the rest of these guys, and you really understood your team's needs. All the credit in the world to you, Pittsburgh. Love that draft class. We're going to go San Francisco. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. To give context, it's value. It's big value here. If you look at a lot of the higher end talent of San Francisco, it's later round picks, not higher end picks. And a lot of people say, no, Nick Bosa, Brandon Ayuk. All due respect to them, but where'd you get Debo? Later. Where'd you get George Kittle? Later. Where'd you get Brock Purdy? Later. Look at their secondary. Charvarius Ward was a later round pick by Kansas City. Fred Warner was a second. Dre Greenlaw was later in the draft. These aren't big first round talents. I know they just lost Armstead, but Armstead was a third. I think, or even later than that. That's where they're really good. But I always am flabbergasted at some of their higher end picks because they're either great or they're woof. Ricky Pearsall as a 1 is absurd to me. All due respect to Ricky Pearsall. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but to get him in the first round when you probably still could have got him in the second or even third possibly, I can't agree with that pick. Especially when I still think there's better players on the board. Your biggest issues were trenched players on your offensive line. Your defensive line also needs more help than you want to say it does. Because you need to add more depth and you've lost depth. And you probably could have used some more secondary help after what you saw in those playoff games where players were getting torched that shouldn't have been. But what did they do to really get better? They took a lot of guys for depth. And they didn't really address the bigger positions that they needed, which was often early enough with quality picks. They did take 2 offensive linemen. Maybe they turned great. I don't know. But I'm not seeing that as a priority in this draft class. I'm seeing that as, oh, we should probably do that. I'm seeing wide receiver as a priority here. Okay, that tells me you're losing Brandon Ayuk, or you're losing Deebo Samuel, or you're losing them both. That's what that tells me. Taking a first round and a 4th round wide receiver with a team that already has Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. And a good Juwan Jennings as well. This is a good team of wide receivers. I'm just not seeing the urgency. I'm not seeing the things I need. So I'm going to go to the San Francisco 49ers here. Go to Seattle. Another interesting one. I love the Byron Murphy pick. They just went, we need more defensive line help. We're taking it. If you would like to see a team that's clearly run by a defensive guy who cares about priorities of where his team is, look no further than the Seattle draft. It's not a wow you draft by like sizzle, but I love this draft class. They needed help in the trenches. They needed help in their secondary. Look at their draft class. Defensive tackle. Offensive guard. Tight end, okay. A little bit of sizzle there, but more steak. Offensive guard. Corner, offensive guard. Or offensive tackle. They just said, we're going to fix trench and corner. And they didn't even need to address corner. They just said, let's add depth to that position, do better with it. I got to say, I kind of love this for Seattle. This is a Green Bay draft for Seattle. It's clearly a John Schneider one with a defensive head coach there. I really appreciate this draft class out of Seattle because they did so much offense in the last couple of years that I really like the fact that they went and got some priority trench players and secondary players. I think that's great for Seattle. Tampa. I don't want to dislike this draft for them. I like Graham Barton. Braswell out of Alabama is a pretty decent player. Jalen McMillan in the thirds. I like that one. Again, it's another classic. They got 7 picks. Not every team can be loaded in the draft class like Arizona's or Green Bay's where they have double-digit picks. It's not how the draft works. I think this is more of a reflection of where their team is for me than the actual draft class. Because when you look at it, they kind of hodgepodged it. Took a little bit here, took a little bit there, took a little bit there. I think, again, it would have been probably better for them to focus solely on one issue and then kind of stretch from there. Graham Barton, I think, is another one of those fix-it-everything kind of guy. If you need him to play tackle, he could. But he's probably going to be more center or guard in the NFL. I'm going to go, this is a meh for me. But I would lean towards like by what I see. I just don't agree with the draft strategy in Tampa. I wish I had more to say about for you, Tampa, but I just don't. Just don't. Tennessee. Because you're only a 10, I see. I will tell you this. Don't like the landing spot because I don't know if they're the team that can handle him. I love Tavondre Sweat. And I think he's certainly worthy talent-wise of going where he did. If you look, until the 5th round, they went meat and potatoes, and that's what this team needs, meat and potatoes. Go protect your young quarterback. Okay, we'll go get an offensive tackle. Hey, we suck at run defense and we just suck at creating pressure. Oh, let's go get Tavondre Sweat, who his official measurables are 6'5", 366. And half the time he was playing edge. That's a great pickup right there. Then you go linebacker. Okay. It's more meat and potatoes. That's what that team needs. That team needs to get back to competitive before it can take the next step into contender. And I'll say this. I like this draft. I do. And then you take flyers at important positions. Edge, wide receiver, corner. All for it. Great job on their part. And finally, the final team here. The Washington Commies themselves, the Commanders. Okay. Another one of those hodgepodge kind of drafts. But they're a little bit closer to where. What was the team that we talked about early? Now it's going to drive me crazy. But I think this is a good one. They needed a quarterback. They had it. And Jaden Daniels. You need interior defensive help. Truzon Newton's a really good pickup, especially where you got him. Sandra still, I'm not crazy about. Except it's kind of hard to figure him out. But more power to you in the corner position. You needed help. You got it. They have the smallest corner group ever with them and oh god, it's gonna drive me crazy. Emmanuel Forbes. It's a small corner room, which is concerning that there's not a lot of size there because Sandra still I think is bigger than Forbes and Sandra still is 5'9", 182. But again, Washington's one of those teams. They have little bits and pieces of talent kind of sprinkled everywhere. The funniest part to me is you lost the biggest strength of this team, which is the defensive line. And they didn't take a defensive lineman outside of Johnny Newton until the 7th. Like, shit, dude. Fucking help yourself. But this was a help yourself in great ways. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They had 6 picks in the top 100. And they picked and chose and they cherry picked things that they needed. I like this draft for Washington. I think it's a good one to have there. But that is all 32 teams across the NFL here and our draft reactions to them in our love, like, or hate it rankings, which also included one meh or 2 myths and a couple of ugh. But pretty good fair comparisons across the board in my opinion. Now, if you want to treat yourself well, I highly suggest you do this for us because it's kind of rad if you go do that, you know. Go over to our Etsy shop. Go take some flyers on some things, just like your team should have took more flyer picks on quality players by going to ptecreative.etsy.com. It's a quality place to get some real cool merch. You know, just go check it out. We got football merch, we got Pokemon merch, we got travel merch, we got stickers, we got hoodies, we got hats, we got t-shirts, we got fun stuff all the way around. And if you're a fan of one of our pieces of content, you're probably a fan of a lot of our content. And it's represented well here on the Etsy shop, and more stuff is coming soon. So go check it out at ptecreative.etsy.com and use that promo code BLISS, BLISS, checkout to get 20% off any order of 2 items or more. So go check it out. Go take a flyer on us and our cool merch because we would deeply appreciate it. But that is going to do it for this week's episode. We're going to try to change it up as we're going more into the off season of the draft. We got a lot, or of the NFL. We've got a lot of specialty projects coming up. I'm going to dive into a little college football in the next couple months as well, doing some previews, some spring ball kind of stuff like that, and some just bigger things regarding college football. We're also going to get, obviously, NFL news going wild. We got a lot of crazy stuff that just happened that was never covered because of draft season here. So we're going to do that in the next couple weeks. And we might even get a couple guests joining us across the pond, across from where we can, to go deep dive into some other teams that usually don't get as much pub here as some of the teams that obviously get a lot of pub here. So that's going to be the next couple weeks on the show and the next couple months of the show. If you are liking this show, whether you're on Spotify listening or you're on YouTube watching and listening, help us out. Leave a review on Spotify. Like it, rate it what you can. Like, comment, subscribe. Comment on this as much as possible. Share what you can with your friends and your fam and whoever the hell you want to listen. If you think I'm the worst person in the world, I don't care. Share that with somebody you hate. At least they'll listen. I don't care. But I will take that. Go see our other content Monday through Friday. All kinds of cool stuff over on the PTE Creative YouTube channel, which is all cool stuff. Check out our socials for more. With that being said, we'll catch you in the meantime and in between time. Peace, love, and hugs to you all. Happy Hope season coming to do. Peace.